This week's first assignment focuses on the structure and function of the cell membrane. The cell membrane is the gatekeeper of the cell. It regulates what comes in and out, so all of those chemical molecules that need to go in and out of the cell to make things happen, the cell membrane is what allows certain things in and certain things out. Its main components are proteins and phospholipids. Remember, lipids are macromolecules that we learned about, as are proteins. The cell membrane is said to be selectively permeable. Permeable means it will allow things through it. Selective means it chooses kind of what things can go through. Some things are able to go through the membrane without energy, but not everything. There are things that require energy from the cell to go through the membrane. All cells have a cell membrane. Plant cells, animal cells, bacteria, fungus, protists. If it's a cell, it has a membrane. The functions, again, are to control what enter and exit the cell, to maintain an internal balance called homeostasis. We learned about homeostasis back at the beginning of the school year. And to provide protection and support for the cell. Remember, there are other things inside the cell, like the nucleus and mitochondria, that need protection from outside invaders. This is probably either a SEM or a TEM in electron microscope view of the cell membrane. Oh, it's a TEM. And you can see the picture, if you look closely at the picture, the cell membrane are these two lines here. The cell wall is located only in plants and bacteria. Its main function is support. So, of course, it does allow things in and out, but that's not its main function. Its main function is to provide a structure, kind of an external structure for the cells. Some cell membrane parts. First, they're made of phospholipids, which are made of two sides. The phospholipids have a head and a tail. The head is hydrophilic, which means it's able to interact with water, it attracts water, and the tail, which you can see are on the inside of the layer, is hydrophobic, which means it's not able to interact with water. Think of the tails kind of like oil and water, they don't mix. The structure of the cell membrane. It's called a lipid bilayer, bi meaning it has two layers of phospholipids. Those layers are each made of one head and two tails. The phosphate head is polar, which means the hydrophilic, it loves water. It's attracted to water. And the fatty acid tail is nonpolar, or hydrophobic. The proteins embedded in the membrane serve a special function. This is called the fluid mosaic model of the cell membrane. Let's take a look here at what the cell membrane would look like when it's interacting with other things. Just give that a moment to start. Maybe. Alright, let me pause the video and find out what's going on here. Okay, back to the fluid mosaic model of a cell membrane. Take a look. So you can see that the proteins, which are these long structures, don't necessarily stay in one spot. They can move around. The phospholipids don't necessarily stay in one spot. They move around. And then you can see that kind of creates holes that would allow other chemicals, other molecules to go in and out of the cell. Okay. Again, one more time, these are the heads of the phospholipids. They love water and they can dissolve with water. And the nonpolar tails hide from water, which essentially, things that are similar to water get attracted to these this part of the phospholipid, and it kind of pulls them towards them, and then as it goes through, these things repel, like a magnet with the same end together would repel. So it essentially pushes things through the bilayer. These proteins are found, and they kind of make channels or holes for other types of molecules to go through. And these carbohydrate cell markers, and cholesterol is actually found in the cell membrane as well. Carrier proteins in the cell membrane allow larger or more difficult molecules to get through. And sometimes those carrier proteins require energy to open and close, kind of like elevator doors. Other times they simply act like a tunnel and they don't require energy. The red arrows at the bottom are pointing to the carrier proteins. Cell membranes have pores or holes in them. They are selectively permeable, as I've said, which means they allow some molecules in and keep other molecules out. This structure helps the cell to be selective. The pores can be found both in the carrier proteins, and through the layers itself, through the phospholipids. Just as a review, these are the things we learned about. And if you're interested in reviewing more on the structure of the cell membrane, I will attach this PowerPoint and you can go to this animation. Or perhaps I'll just attach the link to the animation itself.